Uttering "I failed" or hearing the word failure leaves a bad taste in our mouth. And it's because failure sucks. When we experience failure, it may be difficult to feel motivated to keep going. We might feel disillusioned, disappointed, empty, like we lack any kind of meaning, demotivated, and our ego takes a big hit. But failure is a part of life, and although the feelings that it is accompanied with are negative, it can also bring a lot of growth. First of all, what is failure? There are a few definitions of failure, including lack of success and a falling short. A failure could be not getting a job, not getting a promotion, not achieving the result that we've expected from a project, or not making the deadline. Any of these failures, when it's a friend or a sibling that shares it with us, does not seem like the end of the world, and we try our best to make them too understand that even though they might feel terrible about it, it's okay, and that they'll come out of it stronger and wiser. But that is not what we do when we ourselves are experiencing failure. Psychological research has found that most people struggle to handle failure in a constructive manner. What we tend to do is one of two things. We either devalue the task at which we failed, also known as the sour-grape effect, or we simply move on with our life without learning from the errors that led us to that failure, otherwise known as the ostrich effect. The former demotivates us from persevering with a goal that we might have set to achieve. Say we have a bad experience in our field of work and we decide to change fields altogether because we tell ourselves we don't like it anyway, or it's not worth it. The latter has us making the same mistakes over and over again, leading to failure after failure. The reason for this, according to scientific research, is our hurt feelings following a failure, or simply not paying attention. Failure does teach us a lot, but only if we sit with it and take the time to pay attention to the lessons that it has to teach us. So what does failure teach us? First, it teaches us the ability to reflect. Simply experiencing an event is not sufficient for learning. In order to learn from and get the maximum out of everything that happens in our life, we need to reflect on it. In the case of a successful effort, reflecting on it makes us realize what made it a success, which part of it we enjoyed the most, which part of it is the motivating factor for us in the future, and may also show us the way forward. In the same way, when we fail, by reflecting on our failure, we come to understand what did not work and what did work, so that next time we can course correct. And in the same way, we might find a motivating factor for us which, even though we failed this time, pushes us to get back up and try again. Second, it teaches us to let go and to hold on. Some experiences we only want to try once in our life, and if it doesn't work for us, we want to move on to the next thing. In this sense, the idea of failure could help us think of something as simply an experience that we had to try. We learn the lessons that it might have taught us, and then we have the permission to let go of it. For one reason or another, we no longer want to continue doing it after we have failed at reaching a certain result. On the other hand, along the way, we might realize that we actually loved the experience and that no matter the result, we do not want to quit. Continuing to do something even after we have, by some standard, failed at it, feeds our abilities of resilience and stick-to-itiveness. Working on it could make the result turn around and we could succeed. Because oftentimes to succeed at one thing takes more than one try, or it takes just longer than expected. Holding on to something, working on it, adapting to the process also helps us in having a growth mindset. Third, it teaches us humility, empathy, and appreciation. It's very difficult to understand others if the experiences that we go through in life are limited. Especially difficult moments, which include failures, humble us because we are in a way forced to see ourselves as a normal human being, not a superhuman, and obviously not superior to anybody else. Our ego can be, in fact, our worst enemy. Success has the potential to inflate our ego. Too big an ego is detrimental to us and to the people around us. And failure helps keep our ego in check. Going through failure makes us understand what other people go through as well, makes us really put ourselves in their shoes when they experience any kind of failure. In this way, our humanity can shine through. On the other hand, experiencing failure makes us appreciate and enjoy success. Everybody appreciates success, but not on the same level as someone who has also experienced failure. Additionally, it makes us more capable of sharing our valuable lessons with other people, especially if we are or we aim to be in a leader position. And fourth, all in all, it teaches us how to do life. Life doesn't always go the way we expect it to go. It comes with its highs and with its lows, very often unexpected and unpredictable. Unless we are willing to accept that, there will be times when something simply will not work out. Even if we put forth our best effort, we will succumb to a miserable life. Not always and not everything will work out, and that is just life. The famous Irish theatre critic George Bernard Shaw said, "Two things define you: your patience when you have nothing and your attitude when you have everything." At times we could have everything, and at other times we could have nothing. When we fail, which might often feel like we have nothing or little, very little, do we just give up? Do we take the shape of someone who's defeated? Do we now give up all of our power and wait for things to come our way? Or do we extract everything from that failure and then let go of the failure and of all the negative feelings that it might have normally stirred in us and walk toward our future with an advantage? It is failure that keeps us human. It makes us humble and makes us live and appreciate every event in our life, be it negative or positive. Since failure is an inevitable part of life, how can we make use of it so that it helps us instead of hindering us in our future endeavors? Here are 6 ways we can use failure to our advantage. 1. Define failure. What do you mean by failure? And what do you mean by success? In my late teens, I started learning to play the guitar as an autodidact. I had everything I needed: a guitar. My younger sister already played the guitar. I found some material that taught how to play the guitar. I had already had a music class in high school, so I already had the very basics of music, and most importantly, I loved music. So I figured it only made sense that I learned how to play a musical instrument, and the guitar was the most obvious choice for someone who loved rock music. So at the moment I decided to learn the guitar, not learning it meant I failed. I made a plan of working on it every day, even if only for a few minutes. I learned the notes on the guitar, the chords, and then I started playing songs. Then somewhere down the line, I started playing less and less. I moved to another city, I started university, so life got very busy and I no longer had enough free time for the guitar. And in my free time, other things had a higher priority, like hanging out with friends, staying active, trying different things. Ultimately, I left the guitar behind, even though I loved it. At first, it felt like I had failed, because I did stop playing the guitar. But then I realized I had defined that failure, when it came to playing the guitar, meant not learning how to play it. I had, in fact, learned how to play the guitar. So, according to my definition of failure, in this instance, I had not failed. I had succeeded. If I'd planned to become a guitarist, then yeah, stopping at this point would have meant that I had miserably failed. But all I wanted to do was learn how to play the guitar, and that I did. This is one case when it serves us well to stick to what we have defined failure to be from the very beginning of an experience. Other times, we might need to modify our definition of failure and success along the way. 2. Distance yourself. One strategy that helps us learn from failure is adopting a third-person perspective. So instead of asking ourselves, why did I fail? We could ask, why did Iris fail? Insert your own name, obviously. According to many studies, what self-distancing does is it alleviates our negative feelings towards our failure and allows us to view the event objectively. 3. See it as necessary. Many say if you want to succeed, you need to fail first. In a scientific article published in 2019, the authors referred to failure as the essential prerequisite for success. In their study, they used large-scale data from 3 different domains to create a mathematical model to predict the success or failure of an undertaking based on past efforts. What their conclusion was is that the people who eventually succeeded and the people who eventually failed tried more or less the same number of times to achieve their goals. One of the factors that separated the two was the time between consecutive failed attempts. In other words, the faster we fail and the less time between attempts, the higher our probability to succeed is. Something else that failure is necessary for is to teach us to read and trust our intuition. When we experience failure, we should take notice of our body's reaction, of our intuition or gut response, whatever you want to call it, to this experience. Afterwards, after one or more failures, we learn to acknowledge our intuition much quicker in other future endeavors. Researchers say that what people think of as intuition is in fact pattern recognition, but at a highly developed level. In this sense, failure is necessary if we want an ultimate success. As a matter of fact, many venture capitalists have said that they won't invest in an enterprise, in a new enterprise, if the founder has never gone through failure. 4. Focus on what it's teaching you. From failure, we learn what we're good at. From failure, we learn what we have no idea about. We learn how strong and resilient we are. We learn along the way whether the reality matches our expectations and whether it is worth continuing down in the same path. All experiences cultivate different parts of ourselves. Some enhance qualities that we had but didn't know we had. Some introduce in us qualities that we did not previously have. And some others, they may help us improve our weaknesses and correct our negative traits. This is particularly true for challenging experiences and experiences that do not go as planned. So next time you fail at something, try to understand what did this particular experience teach you. 5. Help someone else. If there is someone else, a colleague, for example, or a friend who is going through the same thing as us, we could offer advice. When we're talking about someone else's situation, we tend to see things more clearly and more objectively. At the same time, we try to do our best when we want to help someone else. Sharing our thoughts and our advice on what to do in a given situation with someone else, who is not us, can make us realize two things. Firstly, that it is exactly what we ourselves need to do in the same situation. Sometimes we do not see it clearly until we say it out loud. And the second thing that it does is it makes us follow through, because once we've said what we advise our colleague or friend to do, in other words, what we have to do, we cannot be the preacher who says, do as I say, but not as I do. And 6, not all failures are useful. To end this list on an unexpected note, I should say that not every failure is useful. Every failure teaches us something, for sure, but not every failure is worth undergoing. The most typical example that I can think of is a toxic work environment, a toxic work relationship, for example, with our boss. We might think that putting up with our toxic boss will inevitably lead to successful work, so we endure anything and everything for the sake of our work. Meanwhile, the damage that they cause us can be excruciating. There are, for sure, lessons to be learned here, but it's lessons that we shouldn't need to go through this kind of experience in order to learn them. We don't need to learn that we should not be abused, that we are a separate human being, and as such we have the right to think independently, to show our individuality, and to speak up when need be. So we should be careful to choose experiences that we can allow ourselves to fail at. We should sooner or later fail at something in life, because if we never fail, it's probably because we are aiming too low. Failure is part of living, so it's useless to hide from it, either by taking the form of Aesop's fox or that of an ostrich. Instead, we learn from it and use it to make us better, stronger, and more persistent. Thank you so much for watching. This is it for this week's video, and I will see you in the next one.